All right. So you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You gotta clear
Sure.
your
I'm as ready as I'll ever be. So sure.
Same mood. Okay. All mad. Like I'm here.
He's like the hand gesture he had like with it. I think it gave it real fun.
Okay, good. I like this. So hey everybody, welcome back to the Primas podcast. I am Cindy, and that's my prima Jess.
Hey everybody. Where's that? Hey everyone.
Yeah, cool. All right. Let's get into it. Or do you have a joke?
I was gonna say, oh my gosh, today's 420. And Ray, who remembers this stupid holiday growing up?
What?
Remember 420?
Yes.
Is it
I
like
celebrate it.
did you celebrate today? Okay.
No, I didn't because I can't. It's not in I'm not in the position. But it's not a stupid holiday. I'm like, yay. So yay, 420. This is not going to air on 420, but we are recording it 420. So correct. Yeah. Any other jokes you want to get out of the way before we start?
Those are all the two I had in my Mary Poppins bag.
You should have waited. You should have like spaced them out.
I know. I just give them all. I threw all my eggs in the basket.
Okay, so today, as usual, we have a banger. We are talking about burnout, and we're going to talk about some emotional symptoms and some solutions, as always, because I don't know about you, Jess, but I find myself in a burnout state of mind, if I may diagnose myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to go through the definition real quick of what is burnout.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
So burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It happens when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet constant demands. And so we'll break it down.
Mm-hmm. Let's break it down. I agree with you, Prima. I think we've been feeling it a lot with podcasts. At first I thought it was just me feeling like this. But when you came out here in March, yeah, we were both talking about how we just overly committed, to a lot of projects, and this being one of them that contributed to us feeling like this burnout. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling. And that's why I want to get on top of it. And I'm doing a lot of work to reverse it. And, it's cool though. But one of the symptoms of burnout is lack of creativity. And so when we started the podcast, it was during the pandemic. And so we had a lot of time, right? And we were like messing around a lot, like just, everything shut down, like things just got so different that we had so much extra time. We did the book club, exercise club. I mean, I'm like, let's start a podcast, like we did a podcast and ideas were flowing to me. I was in a pretty good state of mind. And we took a break unexpectedly, like you said, where we didn't record for 2 weeks.
No, dude, 3.
3?
Almost a month.
Worse than I thought. I thought it was just 2. But I got sick though.
No, oh yeah, no, but we recorded the week before you came out here. So remember, we were supposed to record that week. You were out here, but then time just didn't allow us.
So it was like almost a month.
So the whole ending of March, we didn't record, and then until last week, yeah. And then you decided to have cosmetic surgery, which didn't help.
Do I look different? I got a facelift and a BBL. I'll show you guys that later. Yeah. Whew, it was crazy. So, like you said, I started, so once everything started to open back up, I started to add things to my plate unexpectedly. I was like, Mondays, we were doing parkour. Tuesdays, Jess, are you ignoring me on live television? Okay.
No.
So my whole week was filled, and this is added to our 40-hour work week. We were adding, and then Wednesdays was podcast, and then promoting for the podcast. And sometimes I like to take social media breaks, and I wasn't able to with our Instagram, because I'm like, no, I have to push these episodes. We want to, be, have some quality, whatever is left in us. And that takes up a lot of time because it's marketing. So yeah, one of the symptoms of burnout is that you lose your creativity. And it doesn't have to mean like podcast related. It could just mean I also kind of shut down mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Even for work, I didn't have any ideas. So that's a symptom, is that you lose your creativity.
And that was a big one for you to like catch on your own, And now that I think back, I remember even before our little break, you'd always be like, Prima, what should we talk about? And I'm like, I don't know. You were the one who thought of this. This was your end of like
So
the project. And now that I look back, yeah, you had been feeling that for a while. So
yeah, that's true.
Not just.
And even the last 2 episodes that we recorded, I felt really bad about. I felt like embarrassed. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I was already feeling so good. Like we were getting on a rhythm. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't blame the podcast. That's just something that we need to take off of our plate, right? Mm-hmm. That's just like, I'm taking things off of our plate, like off of my plate. And that's just one that's like pretty time consuming. Mm-hmm. And I need to just hone it back. Like I would have never wanted to take a break in the middle of the season ever before. We never had to. I had ideas, and I was very passionate about those topics where I'm like, just show up. Mm-hmm. Add your 2 cents, but I got this. And so I didn't realize that you felt that way when I said, Jess, what should we talk about? And you're like, bitch, this was your idea.
I didn't know, like looking back, like I thought your burnout was like when you came out here, we were talking, but no, like then I think back, like, oh shoot, you started feeling this even before because you were asking me for topic advice. And I was just like, remember that Halloween, how horrible that was? That was my idea. This is why I don't do ideas. Like
that was not horrible.
I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, like, that was you were the strong one on that. You were always like, well, I have 10 ideas. I was like, okay, let's hone it down to 1 this week. And then it became to like 0. And so that's why I was just thinking back. I'm like, yeah, no, you started feeling it a while ago, but maybe we didn't identify it. Like I didn't see it in you, and I knew how I was feeling. I was just like, man, I can't wait for the season to be done with, because I had an end date. I was like, okay, this is it. Like, we're not going to record every week. And as much as I love doing the podcast, and I think you kind of touched base on it, when we started it, we were in totally different positions in our lives. I was just ending school. So that huge, like time consuming was off my plate. I had like a whatever job. I was doing like nothing, it was during COVID. We were just quarantined. And now fast forward to 2 years later, because next month will be 2 years since we started doing the podcast. We're in totally different we're in definitely different positions in our lives, where our jobs are we're in social services now, both of us, which is very draining. We give ourselves so much to people around us throughout the day. And then after 8-hour shift, then we have our daughters. And then we have like this podcast where we have to think about things, it's not like we don't prepare or try to do our homework, but it's like, fuck, it's kind of hard to retain this information when our mind it's literally functioning on like a 10% capacity. At that point, we're not going to retain the stuff, and it's not going to be inspiring or as motivating as it once was to us. So I think catching these is definitely big on our end.
Yes. And you said something about emotional exhaustion, and that's another symptom. So like you said, we were operating off of like 10%. That's a good point, because I remember feeling, okay, so you feel very tired. And that's another thing that I noticed. I'm like, dude, I've been in positions where I'm physically, there's just my job. When I used to teach health and fitness, it was mental and physical. And my daughter was young. She wasn't even sleeping through the night. And I didn't feel as tired as I am now. Even though we're on the run all the time, I'm just like, I'm getting enough sleep. And in the morning, I'm like, Monday through Friday. On the weekend, I'm ready to go. I do, it's the best. But like, during the week, it's like, no. And it's not like I have this huge workload. I don't know about you, but our jobs are very like emotionally and mentally exhausting, because we have to hear all these horrible stories where there's no solution. And so I think that eats away at your soul. For me, it does. Like when I'm case managing, and I'm listening to people's stories and I'm trying my best to help, there's only so much I can do. The system is not set up for people who are homeless. You know, they need so many services. They would need a whole team. One person or one family, I work with families specifically, would need a whole team because they're damaged for like generations. And you know what I mean? Like they're just dug so deep and you're just like, what can I possibly do? I'm one person. How can I keep this person housed? How can I, whatever. And I think, that part, maybe it's not physically exhausting, but like mentally, it just got to the point where I'm like, what am I doing? And so you feel stuck. You feel your passion leaves you. And that's also like emotionally draining. It's stressful. We don't tie that to stress, but that's being in a constant state of stress where now it becomes physical. Like your back may start to hurt, headaches, your sleep gets messed up. And it's a vicious cycle because I was learning that it goes in stages. Like it starts off with like the energy. I'm where it's like in the beginning stages where I'm like, no, Cindy, whoa, like do something about this. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, on a positive note, because I feel like this is a lot of us venting, but we've been talking a lot about this, like, right, we identified it. I even told Jessica about the podcast. I'm like, I don't know if I can continue. And I wasn't feeling that way a few months ago. I was already thinking, okay, what am I putting some things in place for when Jessica's gone and when she's off, to school. And, remember we were coming up with ideas and I'm just like, no, I can't even, for what? I'm not even I'm not producing ideas. I'm not passionate. And I don't want to sit up here, and record us. Which is how I felt for the last 2 episodes before, not the one with Maria. Before we took this break, I wasn't happy with the results. I'm like, I'm just talking without getting anywhere. And that throws off our chemistry, like it's just not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't know where the podcast is going to go right now, guys. Psych. No. But I agree. Going through this is very tough. And we've had our own like burnout episode where we've identified these. So now we're kind of like going through it where we're clearing off our plate a lot and trying to just come back in the present, and refocus our energy into like projects that we want to like are going to benefit us longevity, and this is a hobby essentially. If we got paid to do this like as a full-time career, 100%, we'd be way more motivated. But the fact is like, we're not, it's just adding a different kind of stressor is the way I've been identifying it, is like an added stressor that I just don't need right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
there are other things we can work on in our personal life that it needs our attention more.
Yeah. And that's part of the solutions is to rearrange your current situation, whether that's tied to your occupation, like what you're doing for work, or the other thing that I found was relationships. Like if you're in a relationship, and it doesn't necessarily mean romantic relationships, although that can cause burnout. Like just because it's redundant, like redundancy is another thing that I found can cause burnout. So if you're being redundant at work, in your day-to-day, maybe it's not a relationship, maybe it's like your roommate. And that just, there's, that can also cause like this high stress, which causes high levels of cortisol being released in our brain. And then that level of chemical being released in our brain and for a long period of time, a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, that starts to change who we are. Like it really starts to change your personality. Anything does, right? But that's a strong chemical to be in a constant state of stress. And we've talked about that before. It's you're in fight or flight and there's no real reason to be. And it's like, whoa, I don't like that feeling. I want to do something about it.
And like you said, I think that's contributing to us feeling tired all the time because our bodies we're just giving and giving and giving. And even though we're trying to refill our cup of like self-care, self-love, it's just more is going out, more of our energy is going out than we're able to put in. And that's where I think it's killing us and draining us.
Yeah, dang, that's crazy because it is killing us because it causes premature aging. So yeah. But let's stay positive. We have solutions. There's solutions that we're actively working on. Even though we're in the thick of it, we're going to get out of it. So loss or general interest, like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So we keep alerting to that. We keep saying like, the creativity isn't flowing, or I'm not getting ideas. I always have, either if it's meal prep or at work, my career, anything, like little projects that we like to do, books we like to read, you kind of start to feel like a loss of interest generally. Like, I just don't care about anything. So that's a symptom of burnout. The other thing that I found was that it is strongly tied to your occupation. And occupation is kind of like what you're doing every single day. So even if you're like a stay-at-home person and you have your kids or whatever, and you're thinking like, well, I don't have a hard job, that redundancy, or you not pushing yourself to live more meaningfully, can also cause that mental exhaustion. So I thought that was interesting, because I thought you're just tired, and it's like, no, you can just be mismatched at work. What, either your workload is too crazy, or you're not getting, or things are not fair, right? Or like some people are like, oh, I'm getting paid really, really well, but I'm so unhappy with what I have to do for work. So mixed match work environments also can cause burnout. And I didn't know. I thought it was tied to like just physical and mental exhaustion. And it's like, no, if you're not happy at work, if you're not happy with whatever you're doing a lot of every day, it's going to put you in that state of mind. Yeah. We're doing great. Doing great on time. Okay, so also another symptom is feeling helpless, trapped, or defeated. So this can be in a situation where like you're in a job, again, either you're making a lot of money, right? And your living situation is like, why I don't want to change my condo or my car or my lifestyle, or I have a lot of flexibility. This helps me as a mom. So it's kind of like you're stuck. And if you're feeling stuck for a long time, that can also get you into that state where you're just kind of like, okay, well, I'm doing this, but I have no passion for it. I'm not happy, or I'm in this relationship and, maybe it's not horrible, but I'm not happy. I'm not in love. I've been in that position as well, where you're just like, this person did nothing wrong and I'm just like not feeling it. That's stressful, because you're trying to adjust to something that I feel like your spirit is pulling back. Like, no, this isn't meant for you. Be brave enough to change your circumstance, or do what you have to do to put yourself, to rearrange your life, to fix it. Okay. Another symptom is feeling detachment, like feeling like an emptiness, or like you don't connect with the world. You're just kind of on autopilot. Like every day is just, hey, whatever. And it's like hard for you to socialize. Oh my God, that happens to me a lot.
And I think sometimes you're like such a social person, but then sometimes you tell me, you're like, I haven't talked to anyone today at work. And I'm like, you've been there for 5 hours. How you work in an office setting? You need to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It
or
is.
like with my daughter, like we do a lot of activities, and I envy those parents, that are like, they're happy and and I'm just like, don't talk. I don't want to talk. And it's my view on the world. It's not no one's fault. It's just me being like, with a gray cloud over my head and just kind of like, what are we going to talk about? Just like a really negative state of mind. It reminds me a lot of depression. I don't feel depressed, but I can see that if I didn't change certain things, or if I don't catch it on time, it can definitely lead to like worse feelings of like, oh, I'm just F this. Not suicidal, but just whatever, right? Like, I don't want to do this anymore. So yeah, so you're in a negative state of mind. And what I found also by doing some research on burnout is the longer you stay in this state of mind, the harder it gets to get out. So it's like a vicious cycle. And again, I think it goes back to our brain chemistry, that I mean, think of, like heroin or meth or like some of these really strong drugs, not even just that, coffee as well, weed, sugar, where you're just pumping your body with this chemical and it's altering, and our bodies, our brains are meant to adjust to their environments for
Mm-hmm.
survival reasons. So if you're on heroin or on crack or whatever, the body's going to try to adjust and it's going to try to keep you alive. And so all of that adjusting changes us so much. And I think that's pretty cool, because I didn't think something like burnout can change you, but it's the longer you stay in that state of mind. But the good part is, because that kind of sounds like, oh, that sucks, is that you can also train yourself to get out of it or to be in a more positive state of mind. Because again, the brain will do what you ask of it. You just got to tap in. So,
And I was gonna say, you having that minor like surgery kept you out of the gym, which I think made you even more fall in it. Oh my gosh. My
yeah, I
dad's
couldn't
calling.
work out. They're like, don't work out, don't raise your heart pressure. That's a big deal, because even if I don't go to the gym, like I'll go hiking, like I'll go on a nice hike where I'm like, pumping endorphins and just like breathing. The air out here is really dry. And the higher you go, the harder it gets. And I like that challenge. Anyways, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I had issues with my gums. That's my surgery. And they were like, we need for your body to focus on healing. So don't do anything else. And I'm just like, that's depressing. I also couldn't eat because it was in my mouth. And I'm used to a certain amount of calories per day. And like, even if I wanted to, it felt so uncomfortable because I had stitches on the roof of my mouth. It was, you get turned off from eating. You're like, never mind. That's how I felt. Like I couldn't eat just,
You
I
were.
started to eat just the same stuff over and over, and it started to gross me out. Because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is all I can eat.
And I remember talking to you on the phone, which didn't help. I was eating hot Cheetos, and you're like, "What are you eating?" I'm like, "Hot Cheetos." You like go buy some. You're like, "I can't." So I was like, "Oh yeah, my bad." So think also remarks like that didn't help. Mm-hmm.
It didn't help. Jessica, every time we talked, she was eating. She's like, no, nothing. And I'm like, Jessica, I can hear you lick your fingers. What is that? So yeah. Um, okay, we're almost done. So you feel another symptom is that you feel decreased satisfaction. So a distinction is that it's not laziness, although I felt, you feel lazy because it's just like, why are you tired? You slept well, like do something. But you just get so like, but for what? There's no use. For what is this all for? And you have a decreased sense of accomplishment. Like I'm trying not to, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm questioning so much. And I didn't used to do that before. Like
What
the
do you
past,
question?
like the choices I've made in my life.
Mm.
And I don't believe in that, when I'm being rational. I'm like, Cindy, I thought I made peace, but I think when you get into these negative states, you're like, what else can I think of? And it's like you start blaming your past, yourself. Like it's negative, it's not solutions based, because
Mm-hmm.
what good does it do me to reminisce on like, why did I do it? Doesn't, you know what I mean? It's like I'm fighting myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can get into that mind frame where you're just kind of like looking for reasons to be negative,
Mm-hmm.
not consciously, but again, having that stress or that stressful state of mind, it's negative. And so you're going to attract more negative thoughts. And I was pulling into the past, and I was just kind of like, whoa, why am I doing that? I didn't used to do that before. And so I would compare myself a lot, like where I wasn't in this state of mind last year or the year before. I was going into the past
Mm.
negatively. So I think that's an example of decreased sense of accomplishment, because if I told like my office mate, she's awesome, I have really cool coworkers, where I'm like venting to them and they're like, oh my god, what are you talking about? Like you're so this, you've accomplished this, like whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right, and it sucks because it's like a reminder of like, you're fine, you're just in a weird state of mind. Cognitive distortion, right? We talked about this is happening because I'm just like, no, I'm a failure. I can't even
Mm.
keep a puppy. Like, what kind of a person am I? And it's just like everything you turn into this huge, like, oh, it's because you just suck at everything. And that's a cognitive distortion, you guys. So burnout. There's reduced performance and reduced productivity. So we kind of, we talked about that. Low mood, low energy, you feel drained. I don't have difficulty sleeping, but I don't feel like I get enough sleep, which is not good because I am getting enough sleep, if that makes any sense. But it can also cause insomnia where you have issues falling asleep. So that sucks because you're adding more to being tired. Two more: procrastination, and then the last one, lack of passion. Oh, we talked about that already. So like redundancy. And then the next thing I wanted to mention before we start talking about solutions is that burnout develops in stages. It doesn't happen overnight. This happens like Jessica said, like, you're right. For me, it wasn't when I went out there. For you, you felt, because I expressed like, dude, I don't know. I don't have it in me anymore with the podcast. And it was a few episodes before that where I'm like, I can't think of anything to talk about.
Yeah.
Which is
But I
crazy.
didn't catch it until I knew how you were feeling and expressed it. But I was feeling like that. And I was just like, oh, maybe you're just tired like I am. It's just like, it's not our top priority, or we're not as passionate as we used to be about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think of the word burnout. And you're like, dude, we're in it. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah. Even when I went to LA, like I went to go visit my grandparents, and I felt like everybody was a little burnt out from like taking care of my grandparents, and I was already burnt out. I went into that situation, and I did my best, but it's tiring when you don't have solutions. And you're trying to help and you're trying to solve problems, but it's just like, how do you solve? Or I don't live over there. A lot of it would be me being present, and it's like, I don't live there. And then that it's like, great, you suck, Cindy. Why'd you move to Colorado? It's like, well, and I started thinking about that stuff. So yeah, these things happen in stages. I think for me though, again, it's very much my occupation. I'm very thankful for my job, but I'm not being challenged in a way that I know that I need. And I think that's why we're talking about school, right? Like furthering our education, where it's like, maybe we do need to challenge ourselves more, right? Like we were, yeah. Okay. So some solutions, I have 4 solutions. We talked about this a little bit, which is change, adjust, rearrange your current situation, whether that's your relationship, whether that's your job. Maybe you love your job, but you don't like what you're doing. So you need to address that, right? Because maybe some people they are happy. They're like, well, I'm making decent money. I got into this role because I was passionate about whatever, but I lost my passion. So maybe it's just reevaluating your situation. But in some situations, it is quit your job. Not irresponsibly, but look for another job to get back into the market. That takes a lot of time and effort. And you need to be competitive, and you need to learn about what that is. And sometimes you do need to find a better situation. So that's just, again, to say that at work, we can be mismatched. And some of the ways that we can be mismatched at work is our workload. If you're being micromanaged, if you're not getting reward or noticed, that can be exhausting, because it's just like, am I doing the correct thing, right? Like you might think, oh, there's a lot of flexibility because no one's watching out for me. But then you get those like quarterly reviews where you're like, oh, that's what I was supposed to be doing. And you're just not happy at work because there wasn't clear communication. So the next one is community. If right, like the culture, if it's toxic, if it's not, or if sometimes it's not toxic, but again, the communication's off. Is there fairness? Is there professionalism? And the other one again was relationships. Reevaluate your relationships, because those can cause burnout, and we need to be brave enough to make these decisions. Okay. Number 2, address the burnout, which is what we're doing. We're like, this is what it is. It does not feel good. It's not going to be good for anybody in our environment, especially our daughters. We want, like, these things will happen, right? Burnout will happen, but we need to show our daughters and people looking at us, show them that we're finding solutions. That's important, because someone can be doing that and be like, oh, I remember Cindy saying she felt this way. Let me talk to her about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is talking and building social networks. Not just through social media. If that's your only option, then of course, but like, sometimes it helps when I am talking to the parents of like my daughter's activities, because they do have ideas, or their older parents. This isn't their first kid, and they're like, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Or they hear you out and they give you advice. Like, that's, for me, it's helped to open up, where in the beginning I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, sometimes it helps that you do vent and that you're honest, because burnout it's very common. So address burnout, don't let it get that bad. I think, again, that's where we are. Also revisit your goals. If you guys set goals at the beginning of the year, I am very fortunate to have a group that we kind of keep ourselves accountable. And I'm not embarrassed anymore, but in the beginning I'm like, dude, I have to reevaluate all the goals that I set, because that's not what I need right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to start my side hustle as aggressively again. Like, I just kind of switch that up, and like, that's okay. Sometimes you need to revisit your goals and adjust them. I think I don't know if it helps you, Jess, because you read a lot, but like, it's very therapeutic for me to read.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't even like reading,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important. Yeah.
Whenever I find the time, yeah, but lately I haven't. And that's why it like took me forever to read the Dr. Green book. I mean, Dr. Green. What is that?
Robert Greene.
Robert Greene.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I said Dr. Green. Robert Greene book, because it was like a Bible thickness. But the book I'm into right now is very interesting. I'm very intrigued, and it's aligned in what I'm emitting out there, which is like financial independence. And yeah, I'm making moves around my life to fulfill that, to manifest that to happen. Because yeah, I don't feel comfortable right now, and I do want to elevate my current living lifestyle.
Yeah. And you said something right now. You said, I didn't have the time. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the solution is making time. So if us talking about dropping the podcast, that's because we're trying to work that time into whatever, relaxing, reading, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so crucial and it's so important that we prioritize our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because we're parents, because this is important even if you're not a parent, but we need to prioritize our mental health, right? Like, and sometimes that means making time.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if we need to prioritize our relationships, we need to make time for those things.
Mm-hmm.
So adjust your schedule, which again, this is what we're doing, where I'm like dropping things like, I can't do that no more. I can't. And I feel bad, but I'm like, no, you don't feel bad. This is for you in the long run.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, reading is a huge one. Just because so I'm asking the universe, I'm opening myself up. I'm like, I don't want to feel this way. What do I need to do to get out of this funk? I don't like it. And sometimes I'll find solutions in a sentence in a book, because I feel like it speaks to you. So I think reading is really cool.
And you said talking last week when we talked to Maria, it was very like last week's episode was very inspirational to both of us.
Yeah.
We were just like, oh, that's so amazing and so inspiring. And I feel like, yeah, I haven't had that feeling in a while where I'm like, yes, like that's where I need to go. I just keep seeing and hearing the word masters. A bachelor's is nothing now.
Yeah. Talking to Maria I texted her afterwards. I'm like, oh my God, I needed to hear your story. And I've heard her story. I've been friends with Maria for a really long time, but she said certain things that I'm like, wow, right? Like, I want to feel that way. I want to be able to just express myself, and just how accomplished she is and how she's still going. It was powerful. So if you haven't heard it yet, please listen to our friend Maria, who's an industrial engineer. She has a pretty badass episode, especially if you're feeling down, because I felt like we were feeling down. And like after that conversation, I'm like, oh my God, I feel excited again. Okay. Also learn about what you're meant to do. So self-help books. There's also a lot of cool like psychology tests online, like just not silly ones, but kind of silly ones. But it kind of gives you an idea of like, you were meant to go into these type of fields, or maybe you're this personality type. And I think that's cool, because we're in a constant state of change. And what may have seemed like was for you 2-3 years ago, or even less than that, it could change, right? Like our personalities change. And so it's nice to have kind of guides telling us, maybe you'd be cool with in this occupation. Why don't you try this? Maria was asking me a lot of questions because I'm like, dude, I never thought about, really what would I get my master's in? And I kind of honed it in, and it was nice to have that clarity. Because now I have a plan, right? It doesn't mean that I'm going to solve it tomorrow. Something like pursuing your education is like a huge situation, very time consuming, but it makes you feel better when you have clarity. Like, okay, maybe I'm going to go into this profession now, or why don't I try this, right? Stepping outside of our comfort zone.
Exactly.
So we're here to create. If you're not passionate, if you're not creating, or if you're not pushing yourself, that might be another reason. Also exercise and eating healthy. Because if you're already feeling down because your chemistry is just like so messed up from like the depression, eating badly, right, is gonna make it worse. Not exercising is gonna make it worse. If I was able to exercise in the past few weeks, I'm pretty sure I would have felt less horrible. Maybe not great, but just less horrible. So the next one is therapy. That wasn't my first one because it's not as accessible to people. But if you have a job, or even if you're on like what is it called over there? Medical assist, like Medicare, Medi-Cal, Medicaid. Like look into these programs, into your health insurance at work. And because you just, right, like you got that through your job. And I know my job also offers it. I'm very bad at it. I haven't done it. But a lot of my coworkers, they have ongoing therapy. So I think that's very important. If you have access to therapy, use it, because these are professionals that are hearing these stories that can help you. They can give you tools.
Exactly.
The social support, like make time to build those social relationships, like at work. Oh my God, I have a date. I have 2 dates. I have one with a mom this Friday we're just gonna go like on a kids date or whatever, but like I never socialize.
I know.
So it's like a big deal for me. Like my coworker was like, tell me how your mom date goes. And I'm like, I will. And then we have like a pedicure date. And like, I just never opened myself up to those things. Cause I'm like, I don't have time, or I have to work around someone's schedule and you have to be open. And I'm working on that. So
yay. That's awesome.
Okay. Last one is learn about burnout. By me watching videos and reading about it, or even just typing in my symptoms on Google, got me to the place where I'm like, oh shit, I'm burnt out. I didn't know this can happen from like lack of motivation at work. I didn't know this was going on. And all of the symptoms were like in line. So I think learning, again, it'll bring you more clarity and more solutions. Okay, bye. Just kidding. So yeah, that
Great
was
episode,
it.
Prima. I'm glad we talked about it. Thanks for being like transparent about it, because it's no joke. And yeah, what do we know? Like what we always say, but this is what we're going through.
Yeah. So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We are just sharing what we're going through. That brings me, ideas. When I'm working on myself, I'm like, dude, I bet you this is like common, and it is. So yeah, share this with anyone who you think is experiencing burnout, or if you're ever feeling this way. It's common, it happens, but don't let it get that bad, because then I don't know solutions, right? Like then you need hardcore therapy, and like, it's just hard. So yeah, leave us any feedback. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks everyone. Till next week.
Till next
Bye.